and that's on the bottom of Chaf Beis Amud Beis. The Mishnah, we did the Mishnah yesterday, and that was talking about how to relay the message of when Rosh Chodesh was established in Beis Din. And originally they used to do it with fires, and they had the 5 mountains that they would be stationed on, expecting to see if there's going to be a fire. That'll be the signal that the first day was Rosh Chodesh. And Mishnah says how they would make these fires. They would have long poles made out of erez. That's going to be a big issue with the Gemara on social erez. They had poles made out of erez, which usually is translated as cedar. Cedar, we'll see there are a lot of different kinds of erez in the Gemara. And they had made like a torch out of it, very tall. And on top they put all kinds of flammable material, and then they would wave it up and down, sideways. And the next mountain would see the signal, and then they would make it again. And in a short time, the whole bubble would know when Rosh Chodesh was. We just mentioned that the way it works is that Eidim would see if it was a Chasef, the previous month was only 29 days. That means on the eve of the 30th, the Eidim would see the new moon, and they come to Beis Din the following day. Beis Din only accepts Eidim in the daytime. That's the day of the 30th, and that would be Rosh Chodesh. And then the following night, they make the fires to announce that the first day was Rosh Chodesh. When you see the fire, you know that the first day was Rosh Chodesh, and tonight is Beis Chodesh. And the Gemara is going to say soon that if you don't see a fire, then you know that it's not going to be it wasn't a 29-day month, it was a 30-day month, and the following night is going to be Rosh Chodesh. The following night is going to be Rosh Chodesh. The Gemara says that there's, and then it says in the Mishnah that then they happened to Kilkul, that they made, the Kusim wanted to intercept, and they made fires on the wrong nights, and everybody got confused. And therefore they stopped using the fire system. They made shluchim to go out and tell people which day was Rosh Chodesh. And then of course it was slowed up very much. Not everybody found out. And the original system was able to get the bubble in a matter of minutes. And now it's limited to Shluchei Nisan, Shluchei Tishrei. They were able to go 10 days travel from Yerushalayim. So the Mishnah says, the Gemara, how do you know that the word Masiyan, which was the original word used for the fire, that it means fire? Where do you find that the word Masiyan means a fire? So it means a pasuk the Siva Yisayim David Banashav. Over there it's talking about that they defeated the Plishtim and they burnt Avodah Zarah. So it says over there by Yisayim, and don't think that it means carrying. They carried it away, it means they burnt it. David burnt it. So from the Targum we see that the word Masuas means to burn. David and his people, they burnt Avodah Zarah. Machabusa pointed out a very nice thing that not only the Targum but also in Divrei Yamin, very many episodes are repeated in Chronicles that it says in Shemuel, and the same episode that here it says by Yisrael in Divrei Yamin it says they burnt. It says literally they burnt. You don't need the Targum. It's the pasuk alone.
So why didn't you read the?
So I don't know. Sounds like an ask question. It's in Divrei Yamin, Perek, Divrei Chronicles 1. Parak 14, Pasuk 12, Yudal Yud Beis. Over there it says Vayisafu David. Vayama David Vayisafu. So it's open that the Pasuk Mamish translate that the word Vayisayim. The Pasuk itself translates itself. You don't need the Targum. Why did the Gemara go to the Targum? Why does the Gemara not bring the Pasuk over there?
Wants to bring from earlier.
Yeah, but so you need both Pasukim. You need both Pasukim. You need this pasuk, or else you don't know what the word Masuas means. You have to have both pasukim, but instead of bringing the pasuk in Shmuel and the Targum, you could have bring the pasuk in Shmuel and the pasuk in Divrei Yamin. Nice observation. Tana Rabbanan.
One is Tosha Bal Pei, one is Tosha Bal Tav.
Okay.
They want to find the source in Tosha Bal Pei. Why?
It's not going to be more of a source. Tana Rabbanan.
They want to be strong with the tradition. In other words,
pasuk says openly. Pasuk says. We said this in the mission also, but now the Gemara is going to elaborate on the point that you only made the fires when the previous month was a chaser. When the previous month was a chaser, so then you make the fire. And if you see a fire, you know that the day 30 was just over. That's what the signal is going to be. The signal is going to be that the fire is made the night after the 30th. Rashi calls it between 30 and 31. That's when the fire was lit. If they saw a fire, they knew that the past month was the chaser, and the past day was day 30 was chodesh, and now tonight is going to be beis. If they don't see a fire, they know that the following day is going to be, now it's going to be Aleph the chodesh. The past month is going to be a 30-day month. That's what the words mean. You only make a fire on the chodesh in year was man l'kacha, which means that it was made early. It was made an earlier month. The chodesh was the 30th, and the previous month was 29 days. When do you make When do you make the fire? The Oribura. Oribura means the night after the 30th. It's not the regular way we would say it. We would say like Orla Wasar, or they want to say which night is the Chasna, so you say Orla or something. But here, the word Oribura means the night after. The 30th Iburo is called the day which is possible to be extended. That's the 30th day. Sometimes it's Rosh Chodesh, sometimes it's part of the month before. So the 30th day is called Iburo, and the Oribura means the night after the 30th. That's when you make the fire, and that's a signal that the previous day was Rosh Chodesh. But you don't make it if it was a mole. If the previous month was 30 days, then there's no fire at all. The fact that there's no fire, that shows us that the next day, that it's a 30th day month, and now it's Rosh Chodesh. The Meir is not a kasha. The Meir is just explaining. The Meir we mean to say that we only make a fire signal only if the previous month was 29, not if it was 30. If there's no fire, that's the proof. That's the signal. That's the message that the previous month was 30 days, and therefore they made no fire. My time. How come they didn't? They made the system like that. It means the Gemara is going to talk about that. Why not make a fire after Rosh Chodesh, what night it was? If the 30th day was Rosh Chodesh, so then make a fire after the 30th day. If the 31st day was Rosh Chodesh, make a fire after that. Why not make a fire always? Make a fire always, and then you know that the previous day was Rosh Chodesh. Why make a fire only in one, and then by default, we're going to know that if there's no fire, then it's a mullah. Why not make a fire every time? What happens if the 30th day, which was supposed to be Rosh Chodesh, is on a Friday? What are you supposed to do? Usually you make a fire after Rosh Chodesh, but you can't because it's Friday night. So what do? When do you make the fire? Motzei Shabbos. And Motzei Shabbos tells you that Friday, because now we made a system that whenever you make a fire, that means that previous month was the 29th. Usually to make it right after the night, then right away the night after Rosh Chodesh. If you can't, you make it the next night because of Shabbos. And whenever you see a fire, you'll know that the previous month was a Chosser and Rosh Chodesh was on the 30th. And now in this case that it came out that the 30th day was on a Friday, and there's no fire Friday night, of course, and once the Shabbos you do see a fire, that'll be the signal that Friday was Rosh Chodesh. If there's no fire, that means the Shabbos was Rosh Chodesh. But if you're going to be the system that you always make a fire, both on a 29 or 30, either one you make a fire.
So you want to know what Motzei Shabbos light fire is.
Right, very good. If they can make a fire, Friday night they can make a fire. Motzei Shabbos will make a fire. They're not going to know. Is it because Rosh Chodesh was Shabbos, and that's why they made a fire, or Rosh Chodesh was Friday and they couldn't make the fire, they made it now. If the system would be that they would make a fire both on a 30-day month also, asu le mitay. Top of the page, they're going to make a mistake. That means they're not going to know. They're going to be in doubt. What is the signal telling us? Amri, is it really Rosh Chodesh was supposed to be Friday and they couldn't make the fire Friday night because it was Shabbos? Maybe it's the fire of this Motzei Shabbos is because it was really a 30-day month and the Shabbos was Rosh Chodesh. So if they'd have the system that you always make a fire, so in the case of Motzei Shabbos, they wouldn't know if it's going to be telling you that Shabbos was Rosh Chodesh or Friday was Rosh Chodesh. But now it's good. Now we make the fire only on a Chaser, and when they make a fire on Motzei Shabbos, they know that Friday was Rosh Chodesh. But the Gemara has still an objection. There is a possible way to make a system that you always light, and I'll tell you what's going to be the system, the simon of when Friday comes out on when the 30th day Rosh Chodesh comes out on a Friday. The 11th bein Malach bein Chaser. Really keep to the system that I'm suggesting. Always make a fire after Rosh Chodesh, whatever the day is. After the 30th day, after the 31st day. Don't make a fire. The system should be that you make a fire always after whatever day was Rosh Chodesh. If it was the 30th day, you make the fire after the 30th. If it was the 31st, you make the fire after the 31st. And when it comes out the 30th on Friday, don't make a fire Motzei Shabbos, and everyone will understand that if Shabbos would be Rosh Chodesh, you'd be making a fire of Motzei Shabbos. The fact that they didn't make a fire means that was because it was Friday. Usually they would have made a fire. They would have made a fire, but they can't because it was Friday night. Means the Gemara is suggesting that you could have made the system differently. You could have made the code differently. Every time you make a fire after Rosh Chodesh, if it's a Malach Chasa, no difference. And if it comes out that the 30th day was Friday, of course you're not going to make a fire because it's Friday night. And then Motzei Shabbos, you're also not going to make a fire because Rosh Chodesh was already on Friday. The fact that they didn't make a fire, that's going to be the siman that it's Rosh Chodesh was on Friday. If it would have been on Shabbos, they would have made this fire on Motzei Shabbos. Don't make any fire. And since we're not going to make a fire, they know that was because Rosh Chodesh was Friday. Since usually we do make on a 30-day month, and now they didn't make, must be because it's not a 30-day month. Made the Yadi, the Chosel, they know that it was a 29-day month, Rosh Chodesh was on Friday, and the reason they didn't make the fire is because it was Friday night. So what's the problem? You could make a system that would have worked also like this. The Gemara says that wouldn't be as foolproof. I feel lucky, the Gemara answers. I feel lucky also limited. There's still going to be some kind of confusion over there if they don't make the fire on Motzei Shabbos. What was the suggestion? If Friday was Rosh Chodesh, don't make a fire on Motzei Shabbos, and everyone will know that's because why didn't you make a fire? Because Friday was Rosh Chodesh. If it would have been Shabbos, you would have made a fire. But the Gemara says no. Amri, hi Molahu, hi Dilo, Abdi, Islusi, this Lusi. People wouldn't feel so comfortable. It wouldn't be 100% that really Rosh Chodesh is Friday. They might maybe Rosh Chodesh was really Shabbos, and they should have made a fire on Motzei Shabbos, but they didn't because some onus happened. The fact that they didn't make a fire is not as much as a proof as if you do see a fire. If they see a fire, they mean that Bezdin made a signal. If they didn't make a fire, and the signal is only going to be the fact that we didn't make one, then people are a little skeptical. Maybe the reason why they didn't make it is because some problem happened. Technicality happened. Rashi says an example that everybody was shikar. That seems to be an extreme example that no one can make a fire because they all were shikar after Shabbos. But the Gemara does say such a thing in Eruvin, but they're talking about a community, but it's not talking about the whole Bezdin over here. But yet, the whole Bezdin couldn't get somebody to make a fire is a bit extreme. But
you don't need them. They could just hire a guy to make it also.
Yeah. Somebody authoritative to make sure he's doing right, whatever.
Say that,
But everybody, the whole place is shikar. Like it sounds like so. Without Rashi, you could just say, "Oh, no, the onus happened. Whatever the case was, an onus happened. It's a blackout. Whatever the case would be. We have also onus sometimes." So that's what the Gemara answers. That the reason why we made this system is because it's a better system. That whenever we see a fire, we know that it was a chasser the previous month, and even if it's going to be, if Friday is Rosh Chodesh and we make the fire Motzei Shabbos, also that's going to be the signal that Friday was Rosh Chodesh. The system is you only make it on a chasser and not on a mole, and if Rosh Chodesh was on a Friday, you'll make the fire on Motzei Shabbos to tell us that Friday was Rosh Chodesh. That's a more of a foolproof system. Of course, if nobody makes a fire on the wrong day, and that's what happened with the Kusim. But as long as no one's making a fire the wrong day, so to have a fire is more of a system than not to make a fire. If the signal is going to be that there's no fire, that's already people are not so sure about that. Maybe something happened and they couldn't make a fire. The Gemara has one more kasha at the end. Why did they make that the system should be that they make it only on the chasser and not on the mole? Maybe they should make it only on the mole, not on the chasser. If every month that's going to be a 29-day month, don't make a fire. If it's a 30-day month, then make the fire to know that it's a mole. How come they made the system that it should be because you're not going to know that it's Rosh Chodesh until after the second day. It's better to tell them the news as soon as possible. So on the night after the 29th, after the 30th, that's the way to say that the past day was Rosh Chodesh, and now it's not Rosh Chodesh anymore. But if they're not going to make the system, they're not going to make the simon until the following night, until the night after the 31st. So everyone's going to be in limbo the whole day of the 31st. They're not going to know when it was Rosh Chodesh on the 30th and today's already the 2nd, or was that the 30th day of the month and now it's the first day of the month. So why keep them in doubt for nothing? But the Gemara says a little bit more extreme. The Gemara doesn't say why keep them in doubt. The Gemara says you're causing them not to do work for 2 days for nothing. And Rashi says the case will be Rosh Hashanah. According to the real system, according to the system that we made. So let's say Rosh Hashanah, if Rosh Hashanah was only 1 day, the Edom came on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, we know that it's Rosh Hashanah. So then, let's say Rosh Hashanah, we go to make the signal, and everybody knows that Rosh Hashanah, the past day was over, and now it's not Rosh Hashanah anymore. 1 day Rosh Hashanah. But if the system would be that you don't announce it until the following day, so then they're not going to know. They're going to always have to keep 2 days. When it means after Rosh Hashanah, after the first day, after the 30th of Elul, they don't know was that Rosh Hashanah and now is a weekday, or is the Rosh Hashanah going to start now the second day, and they don't find out until after the second day. So why keep them in limbo for 2 days? Tell them as soon as possible. First, it says not only Rosh Hashanah, even Rosh Chodesh also, the custom was not to do malacha. The minute that women don't do malacha on Rosh Chodesh, so why keep it in a suffix until the end of the 31st? You could have made. You have to blow the shofar anyway. Again, on the 30th day, they blow the shofar because maybe it's Rosh Hashanah. But then after the first day, is the second day going to be Rosh Hashanah also? So if they don't have the system until after the second day, so then the second day is going to be in suffix until afterwards. Well, if we know already that today was Rosh Hashanah, make the signal, and then they'll know that the next day not to blow the shofar. So that's the halacha. The halacha is, it's an old halacha. It doesn't apply anymore because even in the Mishnah's time already it was discontinued because of the kusim that they intercepted. But And the original halacha was that they made the fires on the night after the 30th. Means if it was a chaser and it was a 29-day month, and they saw the moon on the eve of the 30th, they came to Beis Din on the day of the 30th, that was declared Rosh Chodesh, and then the following night, Matzah Rosh Chodesh, they would make the signal to let everybody know that the past day was Rosh Chodesh, and now it's Beis Chodesh. And the Mishnah continued, how do you make the fires? I don't know why the Mishnah is so elaborate about the details how to make a fire. Like, it doesn't seem to be halacha. I don't know. So how did they make the fires? With vehicle social errors. The main point is the social errors. They bought poles of cedar. And now the Gemara goes on a long sugya about pine, errors. Cedar. There are 4 types of errors. Errors is also a generic name. Besides being a particular name of a tree, errors is also a generic name called arazim. And there are 4 types of errors tree: errors, katrom, eit shemen, ubrosh. Those are the 4. So the Gemara is going to explain only one of them, the katrom. But the other 3 errors, usually it's translated as cedar, eit shemen. The Gemara is going to say later on that it's balsam, and brosh, the Gemara is going to say that it means boxwood. I got the translations from Rashi's French words. There's a dictionary that has Rashi's French words, so the translations I'm saying is from that book. And katrom, the Gemara is going to explain. Katrom, what is that? Rav Idra. Idra, Rashi says, is Ador, Aleph Daled Reish, and we had that in Beitza, Mesachas Beitza. Rashi points out that over there says that Yiteh B'hen Ador, if someone should plant a tree, an Ador tree, Aleph Daled Reish. I don't know what kind of tree it is. The Bei Rav Shila Amri Mavliga, Amri La Zu Gulmish. So Rashi doesn't translate these. I don't know what they are, but there are 3 pshatim what the katrom tree is, and that's one of the 4 kinds of arazim. Either it's Ador, or it's Mavliga, or it's Gulmish. And now, besides, Rav Yehuda said that there are 4 kinds of errors. Upliga the Rabba Bar Huna. Rav Yehuda said that there are 4 kinds of errors. Argues in Rabba Bar Huna says there are 10 kinds of errors. Tam Rabba Bar Huna, Ami Bei Rav. They say in the Yeshiva of Rav. Asar Mini Errors name. There are 10 types of errors. And the Gemara brings a pasuk which only is going to bring 7, and then the Gemara is going to continue to say what the other 3 are. Shenamar pasuk in Yeshaya. Over there, it's talking about how the Navi describes how the Chorban is going to become built up. After all of the service of the Golas, there's going to become a flourishing Eretz Yisrael. Elten b'midbar, Erez, Shita, B'adas, Veit Shemen, Osem b'arava, B'rosh, Tidor, V'sashu Yachtav. That's the pasuk, and it says, I'm going to put into the midbar. Right now it's a midbar. I'm going to place in the midbar all kinds of good trees, and it gives a list: Erez, number 1, 2, Shita, 3, Hadas, 4, Veit Shemen. And then it says, Osem b'arava, I'm going to make in the wilderness of B'rosh. That's another tree. Tidor is another tree. Tashur is another tree. Yachtav, all of them together. So it says a list of 7 trees, 4 and 3. It's ignoring what it says in the beginning. The 4 over there also was mentioned: Erez and Eit Shemen, and what else do we have over there? I forgot. Erez, Eit Shemen, B'rosh. So it has it also. So those 3 it does have over here. It has Erez and Eit Shemen and B'rosh. But the katrom that I had before, the first list, he doesn't mention that. Anyway, he has over here 7. The Gemara goes to the trouble to explain what these mean in Aramaic, and Rashi will translate some of them. Erez is Arza. Usually it's translated as cedar, I don't know. Shita is Tarnisa, which Rashi translates as pine. And Hadas is Asa, that we know, myrtle, that's the regular Hadas that we know. And Eit Shemen is a Farsimol, which is balsam. Rosh is Brata, which is boxwood. Tidor is Shaga, which they translate as fir, F-I-R. And Tashur is Rivna, which I don't know. They don't translate that. And the Gemara says he got 7, but he said there are 10. Rabbi Baruch said there are 10 arazim, but only has a list of 7 over here. Hani Shiva Havu, how can we say there are 10? Kiel Rav Dimi Omar, Rav Dimi said, Hosifu Alayam Alonim, Almonim, and Almogim. They added on another 3. I don't know who added on, but the Chazal considered another 3 trees also to be considered areas: Alonim, Almonim, and Almogim. And the Gemara is going to translate what these 3 things are. Alonim is Butmi, Almonim is Buluti, and Almogim is Ksisa. So Rashi translates that Alonim is elm. Usually it's translated as oak, but Rashi does the opposite. Rashi says Alon is elm, and Almonim is Bluti, which is oak. Elm and oak. And Almogin is Ksisa, which is translated as coral. Coral that you find in the coral reefs, you find in Eilat over there, beautiful underwater coral. So that the Gemara considers also areas. They talk about if it's scientifically it's considered wood, it's not wood. But the point is it also has a shape as a tree, it's very beautiful, and that is also considered one of the 10 arazim. That was the 3 that were added on besides the 7 of the pasuk. Also, these 3 are also in the list of 10. and not some have a different girsa, a different version. Ikadami, some say differently, not alonim and almonim, not the elm and the oak, but aronim and armonim and almogin. What are those? Okay, almogin agrees. Means the 10th one, everybody agrees that both versions say that it's almogin, the corals. But as far as number 8 and 9, is it elm and oak or is it aronim and armonim? What is aronim? Are. Rashi translated as laurel, Laurel, and armonim is chestnut, dulbi, chestnut, and that's also considered an erez kind of a tree. And once again, almogin is ksisa, coral. So we have the list of, it all comes in Aga because the Mishnah said they used 4 poles of erez in order to make the fire. So we have the whole Agarati about 4 hours in, 10 hours in. The Pasuk has 7. Once the more mention about corals, so it goes into a tangent about corals. Let's see how dear lawyer Ben. The Pasuk in Yeshai talks about that there's going to be a big river. That's going to be such a big river that even a big ship is not going to be able to pass it. And the Gemara goes on to talk about this big ship. That's a big ship. And the Gemara goes on to say, what is a big ship used for? And the Gemara says, very interesting thing, that the big ship, not in the Pshat level over there in the Yeshaya, but the Gemara is telling you a point about a big ship, they would use it as a mechanism how to uproot these coral reefs. You have the corals underwater, how are you supposed to get it out from under the ground? So I don't know what they do nowadays, probably a crane or something, but the Gemara is going to say how they did it in the olden days, how did they uproot these corals from underwater. What was the ship made for? Maisu shit alfigavi betraysi achishata. They brought 12,000 men, 6,000 men that worked for 12 months. The big job that 6,000 men will be working for 12 months. And some say the opposite. Some say that it was 12,000 men for 6 months. It comes out the same amount of manpower, either 12 months of 6,000 men or 6 months of 6,000 men for 12 months or 12,000 men for 6 months, whatever it is, the same amount. And what would they do? They would work all this time to load up the ship with sand. Tani lachala. They would load up the ship with sand. Ad the shachna till it would go to the bottom, but it was a big ship. So even though the bottom came to the bottom of the ship came to the bottom of the ocean or whatever, this river that was over there, but the top was still above water. It didn't sink. And a diver would go down. And he would tie ropes of linen, strong ropes, to the corals. And he would tie the other end of the ropes to the ship. And then they would take the sand and throw it overboard. And then the ship would slowly rise. And that strength of the ship rising would be able to uproot the corals from whatever they were, as much as they were embedded into the bottom of the ocean, they still would be able to be uprooted. The common medallia, akra umasya. And as the ship would get higher and higher, it would uproot and bring the corals, and they would be connected to the ship. And then you had all that very precious corals. And you could exchange it for double than silver. It means by volume, it was worth double the value of silver. Very interesting Gemara about how to uproot corals. The Gemara talks about it a little bit more. Tlas Parvata Havian, there were 3 ports, famous ports. The word Parvata is like port, very similar word, Parvata, ports. Rashi says porta. Tati Beya, here it says Armai, but they changed it to Romai, Roman. Tati Beya Romai, Vechada Beya Parsai. 2 were by the Romans, 1 was by the Persians. The Beya Armai, Maskin Ksisa, the ports of the Romans, that was a place where they took out corals from the water. And the Beya Parsai, Maskin Marganaisa, the ones of the Persians, they would bring up pearls. That was when they had oysters. That was a port that they were able to bring up pearls from underwater. And it was called, Rashi says, the royal port. I don't know if Rashi knows what the word Mishamik means, but he says it was called the royal port. So that came in Agav. All this came in because it said about Arozim. And the Erez, once we said Erez, the last one was Almog, which is corals. Nowadays, also in Hebrew, that's how you say corals, Almogim. And the Gemara tells you a side point of how to uproot them from underwater. The Gemara continues about Shita. We said that one of the Arazim is Shita. Again, I say Shitim. All it seems that the Goyim, they took out Shita trees. I guess when they came to Eretz Yisrael, they saw the beauty of the Shita trees, so they uprooted them and they took the wood. And here it says all the Shita trees that the Goyim took from Yerushalayim, in the future Hashem is going to return back to Yerushalayim. Shenamar etem b'midbar eres Shita, that Hashem says I'm going to place in the midbar these trees, Erez and Shita. So it means, what's the midbar? So he says, midbar is Yerushalayim. A midbar Yerushalayim, Shenamar Tzion midbar hayasa. Tzion became a midbar by the destruction. And now Hashem says, I'm going to return back to the midbar, back to Yerushalayim. I'm going to return the Shita trees. The Gemara has more drushes here about
Shita is not either, it's something else.
Shita is one of the 10 Arazim. Eten b'midbar eresh Shita, says Shita over there. Then the Gemara goes further about the Hadas. It says also Eten b'midbar eresh Shita Hadas. So now it goes on to the Hadas. Some Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Alami Torah Enim Alamda, Tom Hadas b'midbar. Somebody that learns Torah doesn't teach it, so it's like an Hadas in the midbar. Hadas is very fragrant, but nobody's there to smell it. So if somebody is a Talmud Chacham, but he doesn't teach his Torah, so then nobody's benefiting from him. He's like an Hadas that no one's benefiting from. Igadam, the others have a different drush on the same words. If someone teaches Torah, there's nobody else to teach, so then he's like Hadas in the midbar, that whoever gets to it is very beloved to him. It's a place where there's nothing, it's a desert, and there's the Hadas all of a sudden, an oasis of Hadasim. So if there's a Talmud Chacham who's teaching Torah in a place where there's nobody else to teach, so it's very beloved. It's a complementary thing. According to the first shot, it's saying that he's an Hadas that's not giving off anything. But if he is teaching, then he's like a Hadas in the midbar that is giving off a fragrance to those who come close to it. So that would be a positive thing of a Talmud Chacham who teaches Torah in a place where there's nobody else to teach. That's now a line. Rabbi Yochanan. We just talked about replacing, that Hashem said, going to replace all the shita trees. So the Gemara goes in to a piece of Agarata about the replacements of the things that the Goyim destroyed. Last now a line. Woe to the Goyim who have no way to get fixed up. Shenema. Tachas hanechoshes avizor. Tachas habarzol avikesa. Tachas ha'etzim nechoshes. Tachas avonim barzol. That's a pasuk that says, Hashem says, I'm going to return everything. I'm going to replace everything, even for better. Whatever was taken from Yerushalayim, I'm going to replace even better than it was. Whatever copper was taken away, I'm going to bring gold. Whatever iron was taken away, I'm going to bring silver. Whatever wood was taken away, I'm going to bring copper. Whatever stone was taken away, I'm going to bring iron. But it doesn't say any replacement for Rabbi Kiva. What could you bring to replace Rabbi Kiva b'chaber? It means that the Talmidei Chachamim, the Tzaddikim, that the Goyim killed, there's no replacement. So for that, the Goyim are not going to have takana. For the other things, for the physical things that they destroyed, there's a way to fix it up. But for the spiritual neshamas that they took away, there's no replacement, and therefore the Goyim are not going to have any takana. Rashi explains, even Rashi, even Hashem is going to come to cleanse the Goyim, but this cannot be cleansed. The blood cannot be cleansed. They could be cleansed for other things that they did, but they can't be cleansed for the blood that they spilled. So all that came in Agav because of Erez. The Mishnah says that they use holes of Erez in order to make the fires, and because of that was also to this whole bonus about 4 Arazim, 10 Arazim, corals, and then about Shita and Hadas.
Very nevious of the Tilavon.
That the Goyim will be punished for all the Jews that they killed, especially the Kiva B'Chavera. Right. Yeah. It says in the Mishnah the 5 stations that they made mountains that they made fires in the olden days. Again, the Mishnah itself says they discontinued it, but in the original days they made it a whole list that it says over there about. What was the list over there again? It started about Har Zesa was the first one, then Sartava, Gufina, Chevron, and Beis Bilton. Those were the 5, and it seems the way Tosfos explains here that all 5 of them were still in Eretz Yisrael, and it's going northeast. These mountains are going northeast towards northeast. Started from Yerushalayim, Har Zesa, and then it went northeast, and then from there it's going to go to Bavel. They couldn't go straight across because there's a desert over there, so there's nobody to make signals. They went up north, and then they came down again towards Bavel. So it says the 5 mountains, the last one is Beis Bilton. And Beis Bilton, from there, they would make the fire and they would continue doing it until the whole Gola, which the Gemara is going to say soon what Gola is, they was lit up like a fire. The Gemara is going to say that everyone made a fire, that they received the message. My Beis Bilton, what's the place called the Beis Bilton? Amarav, Zu, on the Beis. No, wrong one. 1 second, please. Yeah, Zu Biram. A place called Biram. So we don't know what that is nowadays, but it seems to be the furthest point of Eretz Yisrael. Tosfos says that's Mashma that is Eretz Yisrael. Mashma, where's Tosfos? Tosfos on the top says, Mashma Mikanchu Eretz Yisrael. Just point out the Tosfos over here. Mashma Mikanchu Eretz Yisrael. Okay. So this is the furthest place of Eretz Yisrael, and then it doesn't say us the mountains that continue on to the Gola. And then the Mishnah says that he waits over, they keep on waving over there until they see the whole Gola is like a Madura stage, like a whole big bonfire. Amrav Yosef zu Pumbedisa. Pumbedisa is a city over there that would be the city that would be lit up. And how did it get lit up? Maki Madura stage. Why is it like a bonfire? Tana kol echad v'yechad not l'advuka b'yodav v'olo l'rash gaba. Everybody goes up with a torch to the top of his roof, and that's the symbol that they received the message, and that's how it became a foursome in Bavel. And then from Pavadisa, the news will go out to the other cities that they know which day Rosh Chodesh is, that it was the previous month was the 29-day month, and the day is, and the last day was Rosh Chodesh, yesterday was Rosh Chodesh, and now it's already Beis L'Chodesh. The Gemara says, third line, Tanya, Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Af Chorim v'Kaya v'Gadar v'Chavoseh. He has a different list of mountains. Not only the ones it says in the Mishnah about Mishcha, Sarteva, Grufina, here it says Chorim, Kaya, Gedor, others. Ikadamri, so how could it be different than our Mishnah? Our Mishnah says these five, and here it says other mountains also. Ikadamri, Beni Beni, Havukaimi. Some say that these mountains were in between, means even though it said the five big ones, but there were other mountains in between, that the Brisa mentions them, Rabbi Shimon also mentions there were other mountains also on the way that also relayed the sixth signal of the fire, besides the five big ones. Some say that it was a different direction, means the five that the Mishnah mentions is, let's say, Yerushalayim going northeast, but they had to spread the message also towards the south also. So he says a list of these mountains, and there are other mountains also, the southward, let's say, or westward, whatever it might be, in order to spread the message in Eretz Yisrael towards other directions. The Mishnah is listing one list of mountains going one direction, and the Brisa, Rav Shimon is listing the mountains that went to a different direction. Good. Between each mountain was 8 parsa.
Gisa's direction?
Gisa's side. Gisa's tzad. The word Gisa means tzad. Between each mountain was 8 parsa. Parsa is 4 mil, kilometer call it, and between each mountain was 8 parsa. Which would be, now some learn that the Gemara means to say that altogether between each two mountains was 32 mil, because the parsa is 4 mil. You could also learn differently that there were 5 mountains, and in between each one was 8 parsa. From the 2 extreme mountains would be 32 parsa. 2 ways to learn the Gemara over here. What does it mean that there was 8 parsa? Altogether 32. 32 can mean mil, and each parsa is 4 mil. So between these 2 mountains was 32 mil. What's going on parsa? 32 parsa, because there were 5 mountains. So from each one was 8. That's 8 times 4, because 4 spaces in between the 5 mountains, altogether 32 parsa. The Gemara says that's much. We see nowadays that the distance between the mountains is much more. Nowadays we see that the distance between these mountains is more than 8 parsa. The roads became blocked. Means that it's not if you talk about a straight, like what do they call that in English? The way that when you want to say a straight line, not through the roads. How do you call that? A crow's line? By the crows. So when a bird flies.
As the crow flies.
So that's a straight line. So then it will be 8 parsa. And as far as the fires go, the fires don't care about the roads. The fire, you see a fire, and then the next fire was 8 parsa. Well, nothing to do with the roads. But if you want to go on the roads, then you have to listen to the roads. Someone told me that the ways also. First it tells you on the ways. First it tells you the distance as a crow flies. Then it tells you that you have to go much more. When you go on the roads, you have to go much longer. So the Mishnah, the Brisa is saying, Rabbi Yochanan is saying that is 8 parsa between the mountains. But the Maisa, when you go through the roads, is much more. And it says even as the Tumim start in Midrachi, that the Drachim, after the Chorban, it says that the roads became blocked and very much winding roads in order to get from one place to the other. Hashem says, I'm going to fence in your roads with thorns. So they weren't able to go. There are a lot of thorns on the way, so to say, blockages, that you're not able to get blockades. You're not able to go on the road straight. You have to go winding. A different source for the same point. That Klal Yisrael says that Hashem made crooked my paths. That before used to be a straight path, and now it's crooked. So nowadays the roads take longer to get someplace from one place to the other place, even though as the crow flies, it would have been much shorter. So what do we learn about? The way they used to make fires. And very interesting that the Mishnah and Gemara are so elaborate about it, even though it was discontinued, even in the Mishnah's times already, because the Kusim, they intercepted and they made fires on the wrong day. So just again, according to the system that you make a fire only on a chaser, but on a mullah you don't. And the Kusim, if they had sometimes, they wanted to mess us up. So even though Bezdin made a certain decision when Rosh Chodesh is going to be, but they made a fire on the wrong day, and they got the whole Gola mixed up, and they thought that it was Rosh Chodesh a day earlier, so we couldn't use that system anymore. The Mishnah continues. There There was a big courtyard in Yerushalayim. Ubeis Yazik, it was called Beis Yazik. The Gemara doesn't say why it was called that. Beis Yazik, Beis Yazik. And that's where the Edom would come. Rashi says, when Hashem called Edom Wisconsin, that's where the Edom would gather. Edom, they came from all over. They would gather in that chutzner, and that would be the place where Bezdin would also come to check them over there. Or Bezdin would know some Sham. Bezdin would interrogate them over there to get Edom that they saw the new moon. And this would be on the 30th day. On the day of the 30th of the month. So the question was, people came and they said they saw the new moon last night. They're going to make Rosh Chodesh today. So they had to interrogate the Edom to see if they really know what they're talking about. And they're not lying. And Rashi says that this was only on Shabbos. When it came Shabbos, then we gave them these hotel accommodations that they should not be stuck on Shabbos. And the weekday, it could be we didn't make these sutas gedolos, I don't know. They made the big meals over there. When they came, the Edom who came, they had big meals for them that they should want to come. So if it means Shabbos, then it's understood that they can, or else they would have been stuck. No food for Shabbos. But if it's a weekday, because they made it in order to encourage them to come, made an incentive, a big party. So whoever came to be an aid, he would partook of that suda. And especially on Shabbos, that they would have been stuck. So they made a suda for them, they had a chutzner, and that's where they came to be interrogated and to also celebrate until after Shabbos, then they go home. So Rishona, so the problem is they came out of the Tchum. People came out of the Tchum. So again, I don't know why people have to come from so far away, why people in Yerushalayim couldn't be looking at the moon that night. But for whatever reason, it said before that even in Mechal Shabbos, they came from Lud, which is a day's travel, 24 hours day's travel. They came, so they weren't allowed to go out of the Tchum L'chor, because since they came out of the Tchum, the din is Mishya Sachus Tchum, he only has Dalan Amos. So it's true, they were in the courtyard, they were in an enclosed courtyard, so they're allowed to walk the whole courtyard, but they wouldn't be allowed to go out of the courtyard. That's what it says. But originally, they weren't allowed to move out of the courtyard because they came out of the Tchum. Those who came out of the Tchum, those who didn't come out of the Tchum, they came from Yerushalayim and nearby, they could walk around outside. But those who came from out of the Tchum, now they're stuck because they came out of the Tchum. You only can go within the enclosed area that you're in.
You got to Yerushalayim, and then you got to Beit Yazak.
They came to Beis Yazek, and that's where they had to come.
They could. Oh,
Because they're coming on the way to do the mitzvah, Mechal Shabbos. But once they came, now no more reason to be Mechal Shabbos anymore. So you can't go out of the Tchum, and now you're stuck in this enclosed area.
This was a nice area.
It's a nice area, but they want to take a walk. Came to Yerushalayim, go take a spatzir a little bit. So they're not allowed to because they came out of the Tchum. But Hiskin,
They had an interesting shiurim by the Gedolah Yerushalayim. They had good meals.
they had what? I'm sorry?
They had
Good meals.
Tanaim and Amorat. Where was the base din at the time?
Yeah. Nice
They
place
were
to be.
giving
Beis
sichos.
Yazek.
They had good davening, the best Yerushalmi Nusach. There's a lot of
Okay, good singers maybe. Okay, it doesn't say. Okay, and Hiskin Rav Gamliel Zaken say you malchin apayim mam l'chol ruach. But Rav Gamliel Zaken made a takana. They should be able to go out of Beis Yazek. That Tchum is Rabbanan. So he made that in order people should not be hesitant to come. That if they're going to come, they're going to be stuck in that chutzner till the rest of Shabbos. Even though they made sudas gedolos, but it still seems that it was difficult to be enclosed. So it could be a lot of people came also. It could be that it was crowded. They wanted to go to sleep. Whatever it might have been. So he made it the kind they're allowed to go 2,000 amos because they didn't come out by a mistake on Avera, B'Shogeg, B'Mezid. They came for a mitzvah. Not only people came for a mitzvah, but also people who came to save the Pikuach Nefesh. Also, even though they came out of the Tchum, and technically they shouldn't be allowed to. They're allowed to come out of the Tchum because they're coming for Sekanas Tefashis. But once they finish doing whatever they're doing, now they should be stuck in the Dalan Amos or in the city that's enclosed. But they made it a takana that they're allowed to go 2,000 amos in each direction. The midwife came to help a woman to give birth. The firemen came, wherever people came to save from a fire or from a gayas, that would be from a brigade, from the goyim, if there was a flood, an avalanche, whatever, something collapsed. So also he gave us a kind of pashas, and now even though you're out of the tchum, you're allowed to go 2,000 amos, and that's like the people of the city. They're like the people of the city, and they're entitled to go 2,000 amos past the city limits, like as if they would have been there.
Rabbi, is this permission for these witnesses only on certain types of cases or any case that a witness is called for?
Only, it seems only this case, because there's no other cases that people will be saying testimony on Shabbos anyway. So it's only these witnesses that they made special, they should be Mechal Shabbos, they're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos. Otherwise, we don't take the testimony that we have in Beitza that ain't done it. And generally, you don't make it in Torah on Shabbos, so there's no reason for them to come on Shabbos. They come afterwards in the weekday. But these days, they had to come back on Shabbos, and they came out of the Tchum, and they were stuck. So we made this permission.
Thank you. I didn't know.
A Chachama is a midwife. They say a joke, I don't know, is a chacham, a rosh hanolam. But it's just a way to remember. But a chaya, midwife is called a chacham. Ibaylu, base Yazek Tanan or base Yazek Tanan. The Mishnah says there was a chassid called base Yazek. Is it with an ayin or without an ayin? Yazek or Yazek? And the Gemara is going to say that has two different implications. Base Yazek Tanan, Lishlam Alyu. That will be a good term. The word Izka is Aramaic for the word tabat, a ring, and it means to fence something in. So it wouldn't be a bad thing. It's used as a good term. Even over there, the pasuk over there by Yazkei, by Yisaklei was talking about that Hashem built Yerushalayim, the Beis Hamikdash, by Yazkei, made a fence around it. So there'll be a fenced in area. It would mean a fenced in area, but it wouldn't be a word that would have any implication of difficulty. A fenced in area. Oduma, Beis Yazek, maybe the word is without an ayin, and then has the implication that it's difficult. Listen to Tsaru, that would mean something that's painful. The same word azikim is like chains, what we call today, fetters. Azikim, handcuffs is called azikim. So if that would mean what the word is, it means like they're imprisoned, so to speak. Then we're calling the people who come to Beis Yazek, that means they're coming into the prison, that it was difficult to be there. Now it could be that this is all is talking about before Rabbi Gamliel made the takana. After Rabbi Gamliel, then no one's chained in. There's no fence. You can go out 2,000 amos like anybody else. But the original time that they weren't allowed to go out. That's why it seems everybody agrees that it was called Beis Yazek because that was their limit. They weren't allowed to go out of Beis Yazek. But the question is it just called like a nice fence, like a ring? They're ringed in, but what's called that they're chained in? That's the question of what Beis Yazek means. So Amar Abaye Toshma. So this is the old Sayyid. The Mishnah says that they made big meals, so it sounds like it was a good time. They had a good time over there. So we're not going to call it chained in prison. But the Gemara says not a proof. Maybe there were two things. Means on one hand made a good thing, made it as good as we can make it, made a nice meal, but they were chained in. I just had a little thought, just to throw out a little thought, that there is a sheet in Maseches Eruvin that we learned that you're not even allowed to go in the whole courtyard. If you came out of the Tchum without the special takana, so then you have to stay locked in the Dalaramas, even if you're in an enclosed area. In the beginning of Perek Misha, it's you. So I had a thought, maybe it's a thought that the Gemara is talking about before the takana, were they allowed to go to the whole courtyard, or were they only allowed to go in the Dalaramas? If they go in the whole courtyard, then it's called Beis Yazek with an iron, that they have the whole fence. But if it's called only Dalaramas, then it's like chained in. They're chained in the place. They can't even move Dalaramas, only Dalaramas. So just a thought. But anyway, the Gemara says a suffix if it's called Yazek with an iron, which means to be ringed in, or does it mean with the outer yud without an iron and it means chained, azikim? And then we'll use that as a question.
I mean, you could always say that it's Yazek with an iron, even though it's nice and pleasant there.
That's the reason with an iron. With an iron is pleasant. Without an iron, it's not pleasant.
I think the other way. You can also say Yazek, even though they could walk or have a good time inside the space, they would rather go back to the family. They just did it for the mitzvah. So even if it's a nice place and they make it pleasant,
but it's still called chained in.
They'd rather be home.
It's still called chained in. Yeah. Okay, so they're chained in because they came out of the Tchum. Yeah. Mishnah, case that both can say them. How do you interrogate Adam? Now, Adam came that they saw the new moon. There's an to interrogate them if they know what they saw, if they're not lying, and if they understood what they saw, that they really saw the new moon. And many Adam came, like we said, that they might have had even 40 on a Shabbos. People came. They didn't know that other people are coming. Zug Shabbat Rishon both can also Rishon. The first one that came, they're the ones who best the first online, and they're the ones who are going to be will try to take their testimony first. First, you interrogate them separately. You don't hear the testimony simultaneously. So first, you bring in the older one, the bigger one, the greater one. The Omer law, in more cases, and we tell them, say how you saw the moon. How did you see the moon? Where were you standing? Where did you see it? And it has like 5 questions over here, which we'll see tomorrow what the questions are more in detail. But the first one is, was it before the sun or after the sun? Which will mean that the sun is setting, and you see the moon, and he's supposed to know the right thing, that in the beginning of the month, the moon is going to be seen by sunset time on the west. The moon always rises in the east and sunsets in the west, and you can't always see it, but that's what's happening. The moon is always rising in the east and setting in the west. And the mole at the beginning of the new month, it's going to be setting in the west after the sun. The sun sets, and then you can see the moon. They ask him, did he see it before the sun, or after the sun? The Mishnah is going to say soon that if one of these answers is impossible, that it never is going to be seen before the sun. We'll see the Gemara tomorrow. Let's leave it superficially for today. I didn't really look into it yet, but that's the first question you ask him. A second question is, let's phone all the drama in position to the sun. Did you see it north of the sun or did you see it south of the sun? That probably depends on which time of the year, the position of the moon in relation to the sun. So where did you see it? The north or the south? Another question, how high was it? So that doesn't mean literally how high it was because he's not but he looks according to the buildings, let's say, it was like, the Gemara is going to say two buildings high, whatever, from where, right above that building, from where I was standing in the Chorva Plaza over there, and I saw it right above Chabad, whatever, right above that building, about 2 feet above. So we know that it's not 2 feet above, but that's how it looks. We're just talking about how it looks to him in order to be able to see what he said. And Ulayin Hayanota, what direction were the points of the crescent leaning towards? The direction of the points of the crescent. And the last question, how wide? How wide was the crescent? The Mishnah only says one of the answers is going to be always a failure. If he said that he saw the moon before the sun, that's impossible. So we tell him, sorry, you made a mistake, or you're lying, whatever. That's impossible that the moon should be before the sun. We'll see tomorrow more what that means. Just to take interesting thing, that the first of the Mishnah, besides this last thing, sounds that Bezdin, the question is, does Bezdin know the calculations of how it's supposed to be, where, what, when, and we're interrogating the Adam against the facts, the astronomical facts that we know, or we don't know anything, we're just interrogating the Adam against each other. This last question, the Gemara says we do know that Lefnei Acham is impossible. No matter, even if both of them say the same thing, that's impossible. But the rest of the questions, it seems from the Mishnah that we're just interrogating them against each other. Like anytime there's an Adam that come and say they saw a robbery. So we don't know, we weren't there, no facts, and we have to interrogate them against each other to see if they're going to contradict each other. But by the moon, it could be different. The Rambam says that we learn the calculations on our own, and we know how it's supposed to be, and we're not only interrogating them against each other, we're interrogating them against the facts also, because we know what the facts are supposed to be. But in the Mishnah, you wouldn't see that. The Mishnah sounds like we're just interrogating them against each other. Besides this one question of the Fnei Chama, we know for sure that it's impossible. After they finished interrogating the first one, if he passed, they brought in the second witness, the partner, who both can also, and they also interrogate him. If they agree with each other, what is the word? They collaborate? Is that the word that they use? They were able to collaborate, they collaborate their testimony, so then we accept them. Now the rest of it, we have a lot of online, a lot of other pairs of Aiden that also said that they saw. We don't really need them, but we want to make them feel good. So we're not going to say goodbye, you came for nothing. Besides a good meal, you also have to feel like they have some meaning also, not just have to get a good meal. The rest of the pairs, we would ask them some questions, but they should feel like they also had a part in it. We don't really need them.
It's only going to help the not so smart, you think. They're smart,
No,
they realize you just play, you're
You're
playing
playing
games.
games, yeah. But it could be anyway. You get in to go to the Bezdin Agadol over there. 3 the Yonim from the Bezdin from Sanhedrin Agadol. They ask you some questions.
It's not
It's
something I go with the guy asking his name, and I know really his words, but
Hey, you're age. You came special. We appreciate it. And come again. And you seem to know the how to moon. You're very good aid. We know they're not the 48 over here, but they're good. I think people would appreciate to be called on, even if they know. It's like they're also nitzpal. They're nitzpal davar mitzvah. It's also going to be them also. They shouldn't go out. Also, I don't know, pachi nefesh. It's like agmas nefesh. They shouldn't go out. Anybody have a good word for that? They shouldn't go out disappointed, whatever the word might be. Anybody has a nice word?
Despondent.
Okay, despondent, disappointed. The shvil shehu would give them over in order that they should want to come again, because sometimes they will be the only ones. So we want to make sure that they come again. Okay.
It's clear that people that come from far, road or something, are not, they're very unlikely to be called up as real witnesses.
Because they're going to be the last one.
Yeah.
They might be the first one if they're the only ones.
Why-
Now, I don't know why nobody else saw it. That's why the whole Gemara I don't understand, because it's not like happened to see. Everyone knows that this is the night to look up to the sky towards Shkia time and look on the way and look on the west. And why in Lud? Why not in Yerushalayim? Everybody, the business should go to the top of the mountain by Har Mishcha, whatever, and look and see if you see the moon. So I don't get it. I asked people, I don't get it shot yet.
or maybe, okay, I just guess it could be that it's telling you in your eyesight.
Some people should see it. I would think some people could see it. Maybe in the winter when it's a cloudy day, maybe by the clouds, then you couldn't see it from here. You could see it only from there. Could be.
That's the only thing that could be weather.
Maybe weather related.
In
Okay.
summer months, there's no very much less clouds.
Nah, so then, but it says before, Ben Shanir Balil, even if it's a clear night, also, everybody comes with Chal Shabbos. I don't get the scenario. Everyone's coming down on Tel Aviv Highway, congested over there. I don't get it. I don't know. Okay,
Is
Yes,
there
you
any
can.
heat?
Their view,